Wanted to start off this time by talking a little bit about the demo from January. As you may recall, I had a necklace similar to this one that I made using ribbon to hold little pieces together. But when I tried it, I noticed that this couple of the pieces would slide off the ribbon. It's because the ribbon was not adhered to the tile in any strong way. To resolve that, I tried it again and put some liquid Sculpey on the ribbon. And if I can get it to come out of the container, we will do that. Put a little bit of liquid Sculpey along here. I don't need much. Just make sure I get it on the ribbon and spread out a little bit. And then after that, I will put the tile piece back on top, pressing it down firmly. And now by rebaking, I will put it all back together and it will work quite well. I've done it with this particular piece here at the end. And as you can see, I'm not pulling overly hard, but it does hold reasonably well. So that should resolve that problem. That did make me suspect that I needed to try something different. So I have tried some other things to make sure that to get the tiles to hook together. And one of them was to use jump rings like this. I may have actually demonstrated this last time, but the jump rings don't give me the motion I like. So I switched, and I've got some stuff called Ceylon that's beading, this for beading, for string beads. And you might be able to see the fine thread in between these two tiles. So what I've done is actually put some I knotted the Ceylon on the ends and put it between these two tiles, pressed them together and baked it, and it holds quite well. Now the Ceylon is a nylon actually, but the low temperatures don't cause it to melt, so we are doing quite well with that. This week, I'm going to make a bracelet. I'm going to do this one, only this one I made with a ribbon in the backing, and now I'm going to make it with the Ceylon for the to hold it together and get rid of the ribbon. See if I can avoid that problem again. The whole thing is made with just the small tiles off this hex cutter. I've been having fun with the hex cutter. And again, having rolled out this sheet of clay, and this is gold that I then twisted and ran through the POS machine to give it the faux wood or the striped look. And with that, and again, making sure, as you can see, I am pressing quite firmly into the clay, trying to get this thing to cut all the way through the clay, so that when I take the big sheet up, all those little pieces stay together, which they have this time. Then with my clay blade, I can scrape each one of them up and set them aside. I'm doing this on a bare tile because they do tend to slip on other surfaces, and some of the things I'm doing, having the tile slip does not work very well at all. So I want to make sure you get everything separated out, pick up the extra clay, the loose pieces that are here and there, and clean up the edges just a little bit. Also, I'm going to point out, you'll notice on these, if you can see, there's a little bit of clay kind of sticking around the edges here. And it's got an odd, it rolls on this top, but not the other side. So ultimately, I'm going to be turning each one of these over so that the side that was down is now going to be the inside of my bracelet. It's going to be inside the bracelet. It'll be the middle portion where the threads are tying everything together. So that I'll actually have more of a rounded edge on the bottom when I put it together. makes it a little more gentle when you're wearing it. But okay, we've got all those down and set out. I will actually need more, but we'll come back to that later. There we go. Okay. Can't see where I'm working here, so I've got to look at the camera while I'm doing this. And again, I want a little bit of a space between these pieces. So I'm using these little wood pieces I purchased. I got these from the craft store in a box of little wood pieces. But that will hold it, that will give me the right spacing, make sure everything is spaced at the correct distance so that it all works nicely. Just need to make sure I get things down there where they need to be. Bring the next piece in, tie it in nicely, fit it in, and then take these up because that one is tied down. So you can see I'm actually kind of doing this with a 2-1-2 approach. And I will show you why in just a minute, because we've got to flesh out the outside of this. I want the outside to be a nice uniform piece that is straight on the edge. Excuse me while I concentrate as I'm doing this, trying to make sure I get the spacing right and everything turned the way it needs to be while still working and trying to talk at the same time. Gets to be a little bit tricky, but we are getting there. And I'm just going to keep going here. And I'm going to pause the recording right now. There is okay, we are back. As you can see, I have got this thing reasonably well assembled. I've got a few pieces that I managed to get out of position. I'll try and do that, eyeballing them to where they need to be without actually doing a whole lot of work there. But I don't have the shape for the bracelet. So what I'm going to do is come along and cut these on the edge in half. Just kind of square out the bracelet. Now I'm making this for my wife, not myself. And so she has a small wrist. So I'm going to cut this one right there, because that will then fit her wrist very nicely. I'm going to continue by cutting these along the side. Trim those guys up so that they have a nice look to them. There we go. Now I've got a piece down here that needs something extra. So I'm going to take this leftover piece and slip it in here. And I really should measure that, but if I get it to where it lines up with everything else, I'm going to call it good. If I can get it off my knife. Keep that up, I'm gonna have to measure it. Okay, got him down. I'm gonna take one over here. Put him in here in the same fashion, getting him spaced with a little bit so you can see those guys. Then I'm going to also trim those guys so I get a good straight edge along there. Now I've got the general shape for the bracelet. The next step is to put pieces of string along there. Now I have prepared some of these And you can see I've got, this is Ceylon, and I've got some knots in there. So I can actually lay it along some of these pieces. So let me take a longer one. Well, I'll take the one I've got. I'm going to take this one and I'm going to put it down there. And just for reference, I have put the, I ran the back piece through a posh machine on a medium setting because these knots are taking up a little extra space, so that I need a little bit thicker piece of clay so that when I lay the strings down and put them into place, they will stay where they need to be. Now, just for reference, the Ceylon I'm using, if I can get it out of my baggie here. Looks like this one it's purchased. It comes in a nice spool. And what I've been doing is to take a piece of this off. Just to give you an idea of what it is I'm doing with this, because I'm not going to have you watch the entire process. So I take a piece of the Ceylon, put a knot in it, simple overhand knot. Now the first one goes in there reasonably close to the end, because I don't need a lot of overhang. And then realizing that I'm going to be stretching this across several tiles, I want to get an idea of where the next knot needs to be, and it needs to be right about here so that it's in the center. Now at the moment, I'm not even going to try to get it there. I'm just going to try and throw an overhand knot in there. And then once more, try to look at where it needs to be as I tighten the knot. And bring that knot up. It needs to be right there. The needle tool, I can put the needle tool in there, pull the knot tight, try to make sure it stays in the same place as I'm pulling. And you can see the knot. It's a little farther along than what I would like, but it's not too bad. So I'm going to put another one in there. Take this one and throw it in. Drop it in there. And again, pull a little bit to make sure it's going to end up where I want it. And I'm not even going to bother with the needle tool. The needle tool is good if it's moving and isn't going to end up where you actually want it. And then use the needle tool to kind of move it along. I'll show you that on another one. So if I throw a knot in here, I'm going to do it this way. You can see that knot is really in the wrong place. So in order to get it to where it needs to be, I'll take the needle tool and just pull it down. And now it should end up fairly close to where I need it. And sure enough, there it is in a good location for me. So I need one more on that piece of string. And since it's at the end, I will do it the other way. Hope you can see me doing this. It's probably tricky watching because I've got big hands and small string. And again, I know that thing is not anywhere near the right location, but we will start it there. Hold that one and pull this guy down a little bit with a needle tool, get it where he needs to be, pull it tight, and there I've got a piece of string in place. Now, yes, the ends are hanging off, but that's why I've got a pair of scissors, because I can then come in with the scissors and trim that so that the end is not going to be fully hidden. And same with the other end. You can see that one. Okay, so I'm going to take the other end and again, trim him appropriately. Wrong pair of scissors. There we go. Got him. And I have now got another piece of string on there. Now, it is boring watching me do this, so I'm going to pause this and continue to put these strings and threads on there until I got the whole thing taken care of, and then I will start up again. Okay, at this point, I have, as you can see, put strings connecting all of the tiles to every tile that is adjacent to it, including those on the edges and the tips. And this way I make sure that the bracelet is fully locked together. Now then, I've messed things up a little bit in the process of doing this, distorted some of the tiles a little bit. And I need to press some of these strings down just to make sure they stay in place. But I can clean a lot of that up with a little bit of sanding and maybe a little trimming after I've done the baking. I am going to put a little touch of liquid Sculpey on each one of the strings right around the knot, just to make sure that everything again stays together while I bake it. Just trying to make sure that all of this is well connected. And just keep putting a little touch everywhere. Trying not to get too much because I'm afraid it's going to squeeze out between the tiles when I smush it together. But with everything locked in place, we will be able to put the top pieces on. And I'll show you that in just a minute. We're almost done here. And get those guys, get that, pick up that, and one more. There. Okay, we have taken care of all of that. I have with me now that I've got all of the knots covered with liquid clay, probably too much in this case, I'm going to put the eye pins on there so that, and I've bent each one of them a little bit so that when they are tied in and locked in place, they will not tend to slip out. This can be a problem with polymer clay. And so you always bend your eye pins to ensure that everything is tight when it goes together. On this end, I'm going to put the eye pin about here. I'm not overly concerned with how they are, if they're going to line up or not, because I will be using jump rings to connect all of the eye pins to the connector, the clasp on the bracelet, so that everything comes out smooth, nice and smooth. And again, I'm going to press those down a little bit to make sure they're in there well. There we go. So, see, I've got eye pins on that end, and on the other end, I have Also connected eye pins in there. So those are all taken care of. Now I just need to put something on the top. For the top piece, I have chosen a faux malachite that I made some time ago. Keep some of this stuff around just so I've got something to work with. So I've got this nice piece of something that looks similar to malachite I made, and I will press into it with my hex cutters. And just kind of, again, pressing down to make sure everything comes out nice and smooth. There we go. We can see the, and if I got that deep enough, yes, it came off nicely. Wonderful. It's always a challenge to make sure that everything works just the way it's supposed to. And I just lost my blade. Well, that's not a big problem, I don't think. I always have got more blades lying around, so if I lose one, I've got another backup somewhere. I'm just going to take these, and again, as I have learned, again, I'm taking them off the tile, and the rough edge is going to go down, and the nice, clean, smooth edge is going to be the edge that is up. Let me turn this so you can see what I'm doing. And I'm going to try and orient them so that the striations do not line up, so that your eye is not trying to find connections between the striations there, the lines in the malachite. So as I move things around, get them into place. I'm holding off on pressing them down too far so that if anything has gone wrong, I don't have too much to deal with there. And I will come back and catch the corner pieces in a minute. This is a little bit tricky, trying to make sure everything lines up. Fortunately, the liquid clay does actually make it easier to slide things around. One benefit I hadn't expected. Okay, continuing to put these guys on there. When I get to the corner pieces, I don't know what I'm going to do yet. We'll figure it out when I get there. Okay, intending to do this. I'm going to have to come up with another sheet of malachite. Fortunately, I do have one setting off to the side, so I can use it to come up with some of the missing tiles, because I need a lot more than what I've got here. And ooh, that needs to be trimmed quite a bit. Let me trim that guy up. Take some of the fuzz off. Change the orientation so that they don't line up. Okay. I'm going to keep laying things down here. Okay. We need more malachite, so I will be taking another sheet that I have here. Always keep a lot of this around. I like the malachite look. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. Set it in at an angle so I don't have things lining up too much. Things seem to be pressing in smoothly. Hope I got that pressed deep enough. Take it off carefully just to make sure. And yes, it came off nice and smooth, so we don't have a problem. That one is going to get, okay. And now we're back to putting this thing together. This guy's got a bad spot. No, it doesn't seem to have a bad spot, but I will put him here. And then come along, trim this edge. I can see where it belongs. And turn that around and put him on the other side. Yes, I can see that it got moved a little bit. Put that back down. Clean up the edge. Okay. Continuing on, the rest for the next few, I'm going to go ahead and cut them in half before I get there. Let's see if I cut him this way, oriented this way, it should be such that I can drop him in and not worry about things lining up. And take this guy and drop him in there. And again, things don't line up, which is good. Pick another guy. He's going to need to be pretty close to vertical, I can tell from how things are situated in there. So cut him here. Drop him over there. And there. Let's see. I orient it that way. Nope. Maybe this way. I think that's going to be about the best orientation I can come up with. This guy. So I put him in here. And this guy goes in here. And then this guy gets oriented that way. Keep slipping him around a little bit so we get him in. Those eye pins are getting a little bit awkward in there. And let's see, let's try and slip him in. It's going to be tricky getting him in there. I'll drop him in that way. He doesn't line up with anything exactly, so that will be good. And then one last little piece for the tip. I'm just going to take this guy. He needs to be trimmed about here, I think. Nope, too much. Okay, I'm going to do another one. If I take that across there, trim him across the dotted lines or across the corners, what I really needed to do. Clean him up. Okay, he is clean. I'm going to put him on top. And he needs a bit of a nudge to get into where he needs to be. Take a needle tool and nudge him around just a touch. Once I get him there, we will push him down and get him into place. I'm reasonably happy with everything and how they're lined up. So I am then going to make sure everything is where it belongs. And I do that by taking this tile, putting it over the top after I remove a piece of Scotch tape, pressing down firmly. It should just put everything where it belongs very nicely. And as I do that, I'm thinking that's probably not a good idea. Let me take a sheet of deli paper and put it down on top of that so that it doesn't try to stick to the tile. And I can always peel the deli paper up. And I can now slide it around a little bit easier. Okay, that's got everybody pressed down nicely. So then we peel that off. We've got the makings of a nice bracelet there. Again, I'm going to do a little bit of trimming. Actually, I can do some trimming right now to kind of clean up some of these edges before I bake it. That tile's a little bit skewed, but I'm going to have to leave him alone because I can't do much about him. The rest of them look like they're going to be okay. This guy probably could use a little bit of a cleanup right now. I don't want to cut too deep because I don't want to go through the thread. But I got the opportunity to clean him up before I bake him. It's easier now than it will be afterwards. Okay, and there we are. Now, the last thing I'm going to do, and I probably won't do this on camera, is I'm going to pull this whole thing up and put it on a sheet of, I'm going to put it on a paper towel. The clay is going to pick up the texture of whatever it's baked against. And I don't know if it's going to show up or not on camera. You can see the back of this piece is really, really shiny. That's because I baked it on a tile. So by baking it on a piece of paper towel, it'll take on the texture of the paper towel and it won't be nearly as shiny when it comes out of the oven. So having said that, the only thing left to, I forgot, I got to trim this end here and it's got to be trimmed right about there. This is going to be a bit of a problem because I do have the eye pins in there. And so I've got to be careful I don't trim through the eye pins. And that is going to probably require a different blade. So let me get an actual, there we go. I've got an X-Acto here that I can use to cut through that and try to not cut through the eye pin. Okay, those guys. And we will cut this guy. And there he is. This guy needs to be trimmed. Actually, I need to pull that eye pin out just a little bit more because I want them about the same level. Push that guy in a little further. Okay, and that has got everything nicely cleaned up, tightened up. These eye pins are going to stick out a bit, but then they're going to have to. I will probably tighten the eye pins up once everything is baked. And so, like I said, I'm just going to slide under this and pull it up. And once I've done that, I will put it on a sheet of deli paper, or a sheet of a paper towel actually, and bake it on the paper towel so that it doesn't come up shiny when I'm done. And that is the bracelet. I will, when it's done baking, I will go ahead and use jump rings to connect it to the clasp, and we will have a very nice bracelet. I hope you enjoyed this video, and we will come up with something for next month. Thank you.